How to move forward when you feel like you're falling behind in life. How to move forward when you feel like you're falling behind in life. That's what we're going to talk about today. But first, please send your validation my way so that I can inhale it into my nostrils and through my soul. Please send said validation by subscribing to the YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so that you can get brand new videos. All other platforms, please like, comment, subscribe, share, and love with your friends. Quick aside before we get to the video. Recently today, we just crossed the 2,000 subscriber mark. I am sincerely grateful to all of you for subscribing to the YouTube channel, those that have. And over the next couple of months, you're going to start to see that growth curve get higher, which I've always talked about in so many videos. Just get started, figure things out, do it the messy way, get to an inflection point, and then things will start to improve in your life. But back to the topic. How to move forward when you feel like you're falling behind in life. Before I give you specific tips on how to bounce back and how to recover if you feel like you're behind, let me just tell you a little bit about what my life was like. You guys have heard bits and pieces of my story before, but prior to the past 5 years where I spent really working on personal development, I was at a place where it didn't seem likely that I was going to turn my life around in such a dramatic way. There was no indications or signs that things were going to get so much better based on what had happened. See, from the age of 20 to 25, I made a lot of different mistakes in my life. I got arrested for selling drugs when I was 19 years old. I was on probation for 5 years for that, but I kept selling drugs while I was on probation, kept doing drugs while I was on probation, kept doing a bunch of illegal things while I was on probation, and almost ended up going to jail for a long time. But fortunately, luckily, I got out of that. I dropped out of school. There was one semester where I got a 0.00 GPA, and I wasn't even smart enough to drop out of school. I just paid the tuition and didn't go to class like an idiot. I screwed up every relationship that I had. I was so lazy and depressed at times where I wouldn't leave the house. I would sit at home and watch marathons of TV shows while smoking as much weed as possible, ordering delivery, eating as much crappy food as possible. Then if I managed to get some energy going, I would kind of slip out of the apartment, go get hammered at the bar, and do that over and over and over 7 days a week. And that was essentially my life. And then I had fits and starts in that years of 20 to 25 where I would kind of try to get my life together. I would try to get sober. I would try to work on my academics. So I would do good for a semester, and then I would regress. And then it would be this up and down kind of seesaw where on the one hand, I really knew that I had a lot of potential and intelligence and capability. So I would kind of ride those waves of motivation when they hit. But then every time I would go into a downslide, it would be really bad. It would be worse than the first one before. And like I've told you before many times in the story, I ended up at a point where at the age of 25, I was still living in the college town that my college was at, and none of my other friends were around. They had all graduated. At this point, I had been there for 7 years, going on 8. So I was the only one of my peers left in the town. I was all alone. I was watching all of my friends and all of the people that I had ties with back then doing all these amazing things. Well, amazing that I thought at the time. They were getting jobs. I was dead broke, and they were getting great new jobs that looked great to me. When I'm dead broke, them getting out of school, making $50,000, $60,000, looking happy, living in the city with their new apartment, having a fun, abundant social life, having a real career track. Where I was dead broke, I was living in an apartment that had mice and rats in the wall because it was so dirty. I was working dead-end jobs. I had no future. And at one point, there really was a trajectory where it was wow, I could be doing this for a while. I could be stuck in this college town for a while. I could be broke for a while. This could never, this might not pan out. And really, if I'm being 100% honest, in the back of my mind, I always held some level of optimism. I always held some level of optimism where I was like, you're smart enough to figure your way out of this eventually at some point. But it was still eventually at some point, and I didn't really know when that point was going to be. So I had this vague and distant hope that things would get better, but I wasn't really doing anything about it. And then I told you the story in many other videos, but essentially I got fed up with my life. I had gotten this job as a manager of the video store, and that was my big break, my big moment. I got a job as a manager of the video store, and for me that was like, all right, man, your new life has begun. Like, you're no longer a POS. Do something with your life. And I did the same thing as you. I got into self-improvement. I am the biggest self-improvement evangelist, the biggest evangelist of reading books, because this process saved my life. Now, here's the distinction that you have to remember. Consuming self-help content alone isn't going to change your life. You have to do something with that information. So I would consume self-help content, but then I would go to my job and I would do the absolute best that I possibly could at my job. I started sharing insights, then I got the opportunity to write. And then I started writing about the ways that I was fixing my life, and I used writing as a means to improve myself. Sticking to that writing was a form of self-improvement in and of itself, while telling stories about my life, how I wasn't doing so great, and simply sharing the things that I learned to recover, and then it built into what I have today. And really what you have to focus on, if you feel like you're falling behind in life, there's nobody who is going to be able to right the ship for you except for you. B, you have to think about the vocabulary you are using. Falling behind in life. Falling behind who? Who are you in competition with? Who are you falling behind? There's no such real tangible thing as falling behind anyone, because we're all living our own lives. We're all living in our own parallel universes. We're all dealing with a unique set of problems. We all have a unique set of DNA, which gives us a unique talent and skill set. We all have such an individual and idiosyncratic path that it would make no sense for you to compare yourself to anyone, because none of us are 100% alike. And often, when we're using measuring sticks of falling behind in life, we're using it in conventional standards. You feel like you're falling behind in life because you don't have the worldly metrics and benchmarks that you feel like you're supposed to have for your age. You feel like you're supposed to have your career at a certain point. You're supposed to have your life figured out. I recently shot a video where I talked about the fact that you never want to have your life figured out. You never want to feel like you're at some point where you are going to stop learning and stop growing. Feeling behind in life is mostly your social programming talking. It's mostly this idea that you need to be somewhere, and that if you're not there, you're behind. And your concept of time is all messed up. You are thinking too much about the time that has passed. And you're thinking that you're falling behind in life because you made mistakes. But the ability to wipe your slate clean mentally and just admit that you're at this point in your life, maybe you don't like it, but you're not behind. You're not ahead. You're in the present moment. Life is just a collection of present moments. And taking advantage of those present moments is what's going to lead to you, quote unquote, becoming successful. So you're not falling behind in life at all. And what kind of sparked this idea for me was the fact that I wrote an article about your life being behind, or you falling behind in life. And I got a comment from a 17-year-old girl who had gotten accepted into Stanford, who fell behind in life because some of her peers were getting into better Ivy League schools. Now, this young woman is not some pretentious person. She didn't come up with the idea that getting into an elite school was the end-all be-all on her own. Someone taught her that. someone taught her that going to Stanford University was somehow a bad thing. That somehow she needed to go to the best of the best Ivy League schools to feel worthy. I even talked about that whole scandal. In one of the first videos on my channel, I talked about that scandal of parents bribing these Ivy League schools to get their kids in. And it all speaks to this comparison trap that we're all a part of, where we're just in these competitions with people instead of just focusing on what would, make you happy. That might be a good thing to focus on. Like, what would make you happy? Not what would make your family happy, not what would make society happy, not what would make you look good in front of your peers, not what would make you look good in front of LinkedIn. What would make you happy? See, stop feeling like you're behind in life because you're in this narrow lane. Step outside of the lane and realize there's a universe around you. Falling behind is in the eye of the beholder. I'm falling behind in terms of a conventional career because I don't have one. I don't have some fancy resume, LinkedIn profile. I do a bunch of random goofy stuff online. Am I falling behind? No, because I like what I'm doing. So you have to just figure out something where you like what you're doing and then you run your own race and you're not forward or behind anyone else. Even within your own little niche, if you decide to step outside of what you're doing, you want to get out of that comparison trap in general. So like, I'm not in the typical kind of traditional social milieu or whatever, but I could easily fall into the same trap of thinking that I'm falling behind when it comes to writing, when it comes to YouTube. I could easily fall into the trap of thinking that if I haven't produced X number of videos this week that I'm falling behind, or if my subscriber growth and trajectory isn't what I want it to be, I'm falling behind. If I don't have the same career trajectory, I'm not even going to edit that out. If I don't have the same career trajectory as other YouTubers who are big now, that I'm falling behind. I'm not. This is my YouTube channel. This is my race that I'm running, and I'm running it with you, not with all the other fans on YouTube that don't know me. I don't care about them. Once they come into the fold, then I care about them. But when they're outside of the fold, I do not care about them. So in reality, keeping the focus on yourself 1,000% of the time and running a race at your own pace, it's the key to everything. People spend so much time looking left, looking right, looking anywhere but in the mirror, and that just takes further energy away from what you would be able to do on your own. If you would just focus on yourself and not worry about whether you're in front or behind anyone, then you actually would move ahead, right? Because people still are keeping track of that scale, who's in front and who's behind. And there are places in some of those races where I personally do quite well. Like, let's take my writing, for example. I'm one of the top writers on the website medium.com. It's a website where anyone can join, and basically there are kind of like rankings based on how many views you get, how much money you earn, all that. I'm one of the top writers on that platform. I could count on my maybe only one hand the number of writers who do better than me on that platform. But I don't focus on anyone else. Other writers on Medium are not my concern at all. At all. I don't really get super into checking my stats and comparing and figuring out the best way to like pander and appease so that I can rise the rankings. No. I just write what I consider dope stuff. I just put out the content that I think is good. I get feedback from people who actually matter, my actual audience, you, on things that you want to see, what things that you want to read, things that you want to hear from me, and then I iterate, and I only focus on that. And because I don't focus on the outside race, then I win the outside race, right? How many other YouTubers on here, I bet, are sitting here, instead of shooting videos, doing all this research? Ooh, who are the other YouTubers? How successful are they? Let me reverse engineer their strategies. And there is something to be said about that. I do look at other people to reverse engineer their strategies, but then I get back and I actually still shoot the videos. I don't spend all of my time trying to reverse engineer people's strategies. I want to get to a further place. I do look to people who are farther ahead of me in the, technical, traditional sense of building the platform, but but I don't mentally and philosophically think of myself as behind them. They spent more time doing this than I have. Why would I expect to have the same results as people who have spent years learning how to be good on YouTube? Why would you expect to catch up to other people who didn't make the same mistakes that you made? It makes no sense. So even when I screwed up my life and I had to start over from scratch, it would make no sense for me to feel entitled and feel like I should automatically catch up to my peers who did not screw up their education, who did not get arrested, who did not throw away 5 years of their life. Why would I expect to even be where they're at? Granted, given that I made those mistakes, I shouldn't feel that way. And I didn't feel that way. I didn't like where I was at, but I understood that the only way forward was going to be focusing on what I could do at the moment and just taking the same steps every day, right? Self-improvement it's basically all kind of the same. Every video in self-improvement is kind of the same thing, the same basic little cliches. Focus on what you're doing, one step at a time. Cliche, repetition, practice. Things will get better in the future. Don't compare yourself to other people. Run your own race. It's all the same, right? But that's the reason why I shoot so many videos and try to layer the information and say the same thing in infinite number of ways, because I understand how difficult it is when you're feeling behind in life to kind of pick yourself up and do something about it, because you have to take so many actions daily, day in and day out, and there's little micro mini actions between that, and it can be a lot to deal with. So I'm going to stick with you. We're going to keep growing, but remember, you're running your own individual race. I'm running my own individual race. Everyone is running their own individual races. You're not in front of behind anyone. The only person that you want to get better, you want to get better than yourself. If you want to focus on in terms of behind and forward, then just focus on moving yourself forward. Don't look left and right. At least just get further than you were yesterday. And then if you do that long enough, you already know the answer. You'll be successful, and then you won't care about what anyone else is doing. Okay. You 2.0 is the name of the book. In the description below, you'll see a link to pre-order my new book, Real Help, The Honest Guide to Self-Improvement. If you haven't, go ahead and get this book and get the new book down in the description. Go and get it, my friends. Help me. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so that you can get brand new videos when they come out, all other platforms. Please like, comment, subscribe, Google my name, find my books, buy them, share love, validation so that I can wake up and feel happy and sane about my life. I'll see you in the next video.